Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And this morning's topic is reset and how we can see ourselves going down a path. And at any moment, we can actually pause and choose to recalibrate and reset and shift direction so that we're more in alignment with our intended results and outcomes. So good morning, Rosalind. Welcome, and welcome to everybody else who's joining us. Great to have you here with us this morning. And before we get started talking about reset, let's take a moment to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And this time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together, vigorously rub your hands together to feel the tickling, the tingling, the pressure, the temperature, the friction, the motion, and all those sensations that allow you to experience this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, and welcome, Bernadette. So good to have you joining us this morning, and everybody else who's with us. We're talking today about reset and how in any moment we really do have the opportunity to stop and change course. There may be a lot of momentum that we have to counter, but in fact, we truly can find ourselves in a place where we get the opportunity to shift direction, and it has to do with I think it takes some determination and some courage, because we can end up like a freight train going down a particular path that's charged with all kinds of emotion and momentum and maybe history and conditioning, and still we can have that moment of awareness that provides us, we can call that maybe even a moment of grace, that provides us with the awareness that maybe things aren't going the way we want them to. And we can actually step back. We can actually pause, take a breath. And in taking that breath, we can say, hey, can we just start over? Can we just have a reset? Let's take a pause for a moment. And now this can be something that happens in interaction with someone else, where things aren't going so well, things are going south rather quickly. Oh, excuse me. Or it could even be with ourselves, in dialogue with ourselves, where we're just rolling down a deep, dark tunnel, and if we can recognize, if we have that moment of grace, if we can source ourselves for a moment to be able to say, oh, wow, do I want to be going in that direction? You know, can I source a moment of choice about how I'm directing my attention and reset? You know, it's kind of like the do-over. You know, some things, I recognize that some things don't get to be undone, but when we do step back, there's much that we can correct or readjust or shift through our awareness and our willingness to be reflective, to awaken. You know, so much of our reactivity is, maybe all of our reactivity is pretty much programmed. You know, it's reactive. We go into automatic mode. And sometimes we have the opportunity to see that we're stuck in this automatic mode. And when we do, that presents us with a moment of choice. And that choice, accessing that choice, is something that is going to make us feel a whole lot better about ourselves, to be reclaiming our power, our presence, our ability to choose. When we reclaim that is something that strengthens our sense of who we are. Bernadette says, I have a reset with dialogue about my prior life choices and what needs to change to accommodate this new life. It can be very challenging and sometimes too much room for error, but just enough for good change. Wow, Bernadette, that's powerful. So to be resetting about our conversations of our history, that's a big deal too. So lots of us have stories about the past where we get very locked into shame and guilt and self-blame and self-judgment. And one of the ways that we can reset those stories is to bring compassion to them, to bring compassion to our observation of the past. You know, when we take stock and look at our past, our history, I think that it's easy to jump into shame and blame and guilt and anger and maybe, you know, trying to gild the lily or justification, all of those things, and to be able to just look at what there was with compassion and to recognize that whatever the situation was, we were doing the best that we could at the time. It might not have been great, but it might have been the best that we could muster in that moment. I don't think people, for the most part, I don't think people deliberately go out to do dark things to others, mostly. I mean, some people do, but, and even if we've done that, to be able to feel some compassion for the person that we were that took that kind of action. So Rosalind says, maybe during reflection, visualize how I could have reacted better. So in response to that, Rosalind, maybe how we could have reacted better, but maybe to understand where that reaction came from. You know, and to recognize maybe our choices in this moment of clarity could be very different from the choices that we made at the time, and to give ourselves some grace, and to also recognize, wow, I wish I had reacted differently. I wish I had, and if I have that opportunity in the future, I would hope that I would react this way instead of that way, or maybe I can find those things that were calling to be healed that resulted in that particular response. So one of the things that's super helpful in that kind of context is to say, well, what would I have had to think or believe in order to behave that way? That can give us some insight into places that we can bring healing. So Bernadette says, knowledge is knowing. And when you know, you tend to change. So I appreciate that so much, Bernadette, because in thinking about and developing this course that I'm developing, one of the foundations is awareness. So, and the course is about our relationship with money and healing our relationship with money. But until we know what that relationship is, until we know what our invisible beliefs are and our traumas around it, and our history, beliefs, behaviors, all of those things, associations, until we become aware of those things, we don't really have much hope of changing them, right? And so what I'm hearing you say is knowledge, when you know, you tend to change, or when you have awareness, then that's the first step for sure. And I think that there are all different dimensions of knowledge and awareness too. So, for instance, we can say, well, I know I reacted that way because of this, that, and the other thing that happened when I was a child. Knowing that doesn't necessarily change our behavior. And this is something that a challenge with traditional therapy that I have in a lot of ways is that maybe the awareness doesn't go deeply enough. What happens is that we can end up with excuses for being and acting the way that we are, rather than finding root cause to be able to heal it. So yes, these things may have happened as a child, and what are the beliefs that emerged from those experiences? What are the emotional patterns that have emerged from those experiences? Looking at the experience, or looking at the initial incident might not be enough. And actually, in my awareness, is rarely enough, that we get to go deeper. We get to look at, how did we metabolize those circumstances, or mismetabolize, or store those experiences, and what did we make them mean? And that's the level at which we can start to initiate change, is to look at what were the ramifications of that experience. And we could even say, okay, well, I decided that I was unworthy, and based on that circumstance. And so that's interesting to say, okay, well, here I understand why I have this issue with unworthiness, but does that make it go away? Does that heal it? And there are further steps to take in order to heal that wound, in order to move into a place of worthiness from unworthiness. And so awareness is the beginning, and we get to follow it to a further conclusion, I think, for sure. And to your point, Bernadette, when you're talking about knowing, knowing is different than awareness or thinking. You know, there's a deep sense of alignment that comes with knowing, I think. Although it may be possible that we can know something, that we can have this deep conviction, an aligned conviction about something that isn't true. You know, that's also a possibility. We can be wrong-minded about something. And I don't know if you've ever experienced a shift of conviction, a shift of belief, or a shift of certainty. That was something that we worked with a lot in learning NLP, because we have beliefs, and those beliefs are based on experience. We often find lots of evidence to support our beliefs. And in order to shift those entrenched beliefs, I was taught this model of like a three-legged stool, that you start knocking the legs out from underneath the stool, and then that crumbles the foundation of that belief. And the unfortunate thing is that can happen with beliefs that support us as well. You know, that those supports for the belief can be eroded, and then the belief itself can then be threatened. So Bernadette says, compartmentalize the emotions. Well, I think we do tend to compartmentalize. And when we do that, we lose access to awareness about those emotions sometimes. You know, we put them in a nice little package and put them in the back of the closet so that we don't have to contend with them. And then the thing is that if you put a fish, you know, a dead fish in a box in the back of the closet, that closet is going to start to stink, you know, regardless of how neatly wrapped the box might be. And so we get to attend to these things that we want to dispense with, because oftentimes they're just not dispensed with, actually, right? They're festering, and they show up at the weirdest of times, years and years and years later, in some kind of reaction that was triggered by something seemingly quite benign. Then all the emotion and the angst of whatever that trauma was just bubbles back up to the surface, and it can be quite shocking. I don't know if you've ever experienced something like that. Things like that can happen also, for instance, if you're having body work done. Sometimes, because the body stores these memories and these traumas in a variety of different ways. And sometimes you can be touched in a particular way in a particular place that then brings forward a cascade of emotion and memory and reactivity, and release too. Release can occur that way as well, where, something that we've been holding for years and years and years finds release finally. That's a powerful and wonderful thing when that happens, and we get to let go of something that we didn't even know we were holding. It happens often that in the midst of a process with clients, there's a depth of emotion that arises that is really surprising. And it can often be confusing, to recognize, oh my gosh, why did I act that way? Or where did that emotion come from? Or, all of a sudden, you're finding yourself crying, but you don't know why you're crying. It's because all of this stuff has been suppressed. And your body is just saying, guess what? There's not enough room in here for all of that. We've just got to be releasing it. Bernadette says, I feel that if the issue was not dealt with and stored away, that rainy day appears and pop, that little package you stored comes back gift wrapped big time. It's 100%, Bernadette. That is what happens. You store that thing away and then something happens and bammo, there it is again. And you don't have much of a choice then to deal with it. It's interesting because when I have clients show up in crisis, maybe I'm twisted, but when that happens, I do a happy dance. They all think it's funny. Show up in tears and I'm like, yay, good. Because now we have something that has come up that is ready to heal. And that's my premise, is when these traumas resurface, when we have big upsets, it's because we're ready to heal those things. And that's a gift that our consciousness gives us, is to bring up that gift wrapped package, right? To say, okay, here, this extreme trauma, this extreme disruption, it's here because it's time for it to be healed. And so powerful stuff. And all of that is part of a reset. When we I've told you the past few days that I was doing this money autobiography, and I was writing down things that occurred in the past, and I noticed that there was a lot of emotion that came up around that. And so I've been doing work on it. And also there's something super powerful in being able to face that, to face whatever the guilt, shame, blame scenarios might be there from the past, resentments and sorrows and all of it, to recognize, oh, wow, I didn't even know there was still this level of emotion around this incident. I thought I had processed through that, and here's some more. And so that is the opportunity, and it takes courage. There's no question about it. It takes courage to be able to face these things head on that we have these very visceral reactions to. But the reset is about creating a new context, creating a new opening, a new perspective, a new possibility. Bernadette says, the gift that keeps on giving, right? Until it doesn't, until we unwrap that package and and take out whatever's inside, and you know, maybe it's a ultimately, once it's integrated, there's a deliciousness about it, right? That we get to find ways to embody our transformation, to metabolize the change, to digest these events and experiences in order to become free of them. That that there's a richness in our human experience. It's just part of being human, and we all do things that we're not proud of. We all have experiences that are traumatic. We all have experiences of things that happen that we believe shouldn't have happened that way, and they did. And what if the way things happened was exactly how they were meant to happen for our own growth and development? I remember I was going through such a period of emotional pain for years and years and years, and I would recite to myself frantically at sometimes, everything is perfect for my growth. And it sure didn't feel that way. It sure didn't feel that way. But I would say that in retrospect, I can attest to that, the truth of that, and that we get to choose to allow everything to be perfect for our growth, to not see it as punishment, not see it as failure, see it as an opportunity to expand our awareness and expand our sense of presence and our capacity for being. And I think with that, I'm going to call it a morning. So that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And Bernadette says, the truth of my death could have been less dramatic. And Rosalind says, being curious. So Bernadette, that's sort of a koan kind of statement. It's just so filled with content that we don't have a time today to dissect, but perhaps we can revisit that. In any case, I so appreciate you and your engagement with these conversations. I know you were referring to your heart attack in January, but and you're using that as a massive reset, right? Massive reset. And it seems like you've taken it as a new lease on life, which is so profound and marvelous. Anyway, I just want to thank you for being so engaged and willing to explore these things that are often awkward and sometimes painful. And just so much love to you. And until next time.